So most people have heard the story about where the oil came from. And many people in the live events that we have done have heard the story of Dante Bolcato, a retired psychotherapist who moved to Ecuador seeking a new life, and how he met the Palo Santo tree. But a lot of people have not yet heard the entire story about how we met the oil and how we helped to develop the replanting of the Palo Santo in conjunction with Dante, and how all of this has become one of Floracopeia's greatest success stories. And so this is from the first chapter, titled Into the Fire. An auspicious wind is blowing off the Bay of Bengal, carrying warm marine fragrances through the night sky. The temples of Mahabalipuram stand silently on Tamil Nadu's dark horizon as the flames of a small fire dance before us. What is this auspiciousness that graces the air? Sometimes a small event leads to something great. A tiny gesture creates an unexpected series of fortunate consequences that could never be predicted at the time, but seen only in retrospect. In retrospect, one might sense that such an event was the opening play of an irresistible destiny about to unfold, as if an invisible presence had already cast the players of the story and would now gently touch their lives, beckoning. A small event of this type is about to happen. So this story starts on the beach of South India, and it starts actually at a small ceremony around a fire. And at this particular time, a person who was leading this ceremony threw a piece of Palo Santo wood into the fire. And that was the first time that I met Palo Santo. And the fragrance came into my awareness, and I became very interested in this tree. And this gentleman who threw this piece of wood in the fire suggested that maybe I could meet that tree and maybe distill the oil. So 9 months later, I found myself in Ecuador for the first time, which was 7 years ago. And through more series of very interesting synchronicity, I met a small bottle of essential oil that had just recently been distilled as part of a new project, a new distillery that was just being created on the Ecuadorian coast, 3 hours north of Guayaquil. And 3 days later, I was there, and I met Dante Bolcato, who had come 6 years earlier and had met the Palo Santo tree, and he says it saved his life. Dante arrived in Ecuador very tired and fatigued, exhausted, depressed, overworked from years as a clinical psychotherapist. And he told me at that time when I first met him that he had basically just come to Ecuador to peacefully spend the rest of his days, and then he met this tree. It just happened that the place where he was living was right next to the Machalia Park, which is the heartland of the Palo Santo territory. And so when he met this tree, he was immensely inspired and decided that he was going to dedicate his life to taking care of this tree. And so now, many years later, if we were to go to the end of the story, we find an amazing thing, and that is that Dante, every day, sits in front of a fire, early at dawn and in the evening, and he does the same type of ceremony that was what opened this story. And so the story is all about magic, and the story is about these synchronicities, and the story is about how Palo Santo creates magic and synchronicity in people's lives. And so the story stretches from the first meeting of the Palo Santo wood as it fell into the fire on the beach at Mahabalipuram until we met Dante again several months ago, and there he is, praying, meditating with the Palo Santo fire again. And so the book, Sacred Smoke, is about that period of 7 years, about everything that transpired during that time, and about how this oil had such a great impact on my life personally, on the lives of the people who are working with it, on Dante's life, and on all the lives of the people who have met it.